Hi everyone, it's John again, and this evening we've got, of course, Chef Chris Hill back. I'm excited to talk to him about the launch of his new restaurant. Before we get started with that, I just want to introduce a good friend and my fellow instructor for Udemy on Instagram marketing, and now she's starting to do a visual marketing company, Sarah Davidson, and she'll be here to kind of help us talk about some of the different things that Chris can do for the launch of his new restaurant. Unfortunately, right now it doesn't look like we have, George is able to join us, but we have, of course, our guest Chris, and we're excited to talk about the new place. And Chris, if you could just talk a little bit about what the concept is of the place and who you're really looking to kind of have coming through your doors and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, John and Sarah. Pleasure meeting you as well. Yeah, I own a restaurant in Virginia, and I'm actually just moved back to Atlanta, where I'm from originally, opening up a modern barbecue and bourbon restaurant with my brother called Smoke and Still. We both grew up here in Atlanta. Our whole family's here, so it made sense to make the move back. And the whole concept again is modern barbecue and also bourbon, and it's gonna have the same kind of environment, high energy, and we're excited. We're really excited. It's gonna be right here in the Buckhead area, in a neighborhood called Peachtree Hills. Assuming all goes well, is planned in the next couple of days. And the nice thing about it is we're targeting folks really 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that are a little bit curious about what they want to eat food wise, that are part of that kind of trending towards the trendy restaurants, and that are a little bit curious, and as a result, actually, the surrounding neighborhood right there is a lot of young professionals, a lot of 30s with small families that will really look to work with them and target them and bring them in. So
Yeah, I've definitely seen a trend, myself towards that, folks, like kind of are either, the kind of fast casual kind of thing and stuff, or towards more like kind of economical, like, luxury or kind of where it's a little bit more, like you said, upscale and stuff. So I think that seems to be like kind of the biggest trends in the food industry and stuff. And so I'm guessing that that's really what you're seeing as kind of like your ideal customer is somebody who is more for these more high end kind of like you said the food and stuff. Is
yeah,
that
and the I think the idea of, I mean, sure, it's still there. The idea of the nice French restaurant, with you have 10 forks and 5 knives and all that kind of thing, that's really elegant and pretentious. That's still around, obviously, but I think a lot of people are going more towards the economical, $15 to $25 range for entrees. So you and your spouse can, or significant other, can get out of there for 70, $80 versus 200 when you have a couple cocktails or a bottle of wine. So our goal is to be affordable, but at the same time, not like your traditional, obviously, neighborhood restaurant, but something a little bit sexed up a little bit, and I think we'll definitely accomplish that and get some solid fan base, definitely around the city, but right close by in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, and for me, like one of the other things that's a trend is just simply, like today's, customer is very much tech savvy. I mean, everybody on their smartphone, will go on, social media, Facebook and stuff. They'll look at a restaurant before even, like they'll check it out on Yelp and stuff like that. And so I think that that's one of the things that, like, as a, whether you own a store or a restaurant, you've got to be really savvy on these kinds of things and stuff. And so I feel that that's one of the key areas is to kind of have an online marketing strategy. So
Absolutely.
what kind of things do you guys find as like kind of your challenges for opening up the restaurant?
Well, I definitely agree with you. Obviously, there's a certain, for brick and mortar, a restaurant like us in a big city, you want to make a name for yourself early on. We're going to go with some normal PR routes for the traditional media, some TV stuff, some print, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of getting kind of the word out there and starting that digital footprint, getting part of that story online, I think is massively important. Especially we see a huge opportunity in the neighboring zip codes, and I think one of the great ways to do that is using Facebook dark posts, or I think Facebook unpublished posts is what it's technically called, but where you can almost in the same way that you would with was it a mail mass mail, you can target people within a zip code. You can target people within certain type of restaurants and certain age group and all those kinds of things that really make it so much easier to identify and bring in the people that you're looking for. I mean, that's the first step we're going to do. Obviously, things like Instagram, people, I'd say aside from fitness and bikini models, food's probably the next best thing on Instagram.
Huge, yeah. Restaurants are huge on Instagram. The other thing, have you thought about as part of your online advertising strategy and your traffic strategy, doing retargeting using Facebook? So making sure that you have that retargeting code right away when your website goes live, so you can capture people that visit your site, and then you can retarget them using Facebook ads and even Google ads.
We haven't gone that route yet, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit for myself, but also maybe some of the people watching, how to go about doing that exactly.
Yeah, so with Facebook, it's really simple. Within the Facebook ads platform, you can just grab a retargeting pixel for your ads account. And if you put that, they have instructions that kind of walks you through where to put it on your website. But basically, it will track all the visitors to your website within Facebook. So you can build custom audiences. So later, you can say, I want to send this Facebook ad only to people that have already visited my website within this time period, or even that have visited certain pages of my website but not other pages. But, I think really what's critical with any kind of advertising campaign and all the PR that you're doing is that you have to touch people multiple times before it sinks in and they remember. I mean, generally it's 6 or 7 times before somebody will make a purchase. And so what you really want to make sure is that you're able to capture those audiences, so that if you have a great, PR, success where you might have a great article written up about you in the paper, or, a blog puts a feature on there and you get a bunch of traffic from it, you want to be able to capture all those people that visited your website and make sure that you can retarget them with ads later. So you can do the same with Google. You can get a Google Pixel to put onto your website and track it so that you could later do ads for them. But I would recommend having that, whenever you have your website web developer get the site up, make sure that they put those retargeting pixels at a minimum Facebook and Google up there, just so you have it to capture any traffic. And even before you launch, if you have a pre-launch page, you want to start capturing that audience, because you can retarget on Facebook, I think, up to 180 days is what it is now, and on Google and YouTube, you could retarget up to, I think, 365 days. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Yeah.
But you find that your cost effectiveness, you'll start to get much, much less expensive clicks and conversions when you start retargeting those audiences.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Your cost will drop down from like $1 a click or so to pennies. So that's a huge, especially as a startup, that's huge.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And the thing is, I'm going to say real quick that what's interesting, Chris, was that all three of us that we've connected through just these different online media and stuff like that. We've never met in person and stuff, but we all have the goal of helping you with your business and stuff. I think that's one of the things about this technology is we can definitely extend our reach and build these connections. And that's one of the things that I'm really big about, is just absolutely finding ways to kind of develop a relationship with somebody, whether you end up as a customer or not, it doesn't matter to me. It's just that it's this kind of ongoing relationship, and I feel like that's one of the things that's key for whether you use online marketing or social media and stuff, is it's just building these relationships.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to say though that on the recent you recently had the TED Talk and stuff like that, you kind of talked about just kind of some different things that were inspiring. Is that also something that you find that you're trying to convey with the new restaurant and stuff? It's just some of the different ideas beyond simply just the food and the those elements and stuff, but also your approach to cooking and to the restaurant business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a multi-pronged kind of strategy, I guess. Part of it is creating that reputation of this is who that guy is, and I'm looking to not just do the one restaurant here in Atlanta, but to expand out from there. And a great way to build not only credibility, but also credibility for hiring people and building a team that I really trust and that trust me and works great together is creating that reputation for myself that people say, wow, this guy really has a good head on his shoulders. He gets it. He understands people. He understands business. He understands how to take care of people, that kind of thing. So that's part of it. And then the other part is just especially for like looking at we had to get some investor money for the startup here, and being able to develop and build a platform that's not just about food, but is about people and connecting with people. That's been a lot of the reason that I've been able to get 7,000 Facebook fans and however many 3,000 or 4,000 on Instagram and being able to use these mediums to kind of show that, hey, I'm a person too, I'm worth connecting to, and I think it's been huge to help build an audience that once it's time for investment or it's time for even audiences, people can read about me or find me online and see, wow, okay, this guy's out there and he's not only doing it, but he's connecting with the people out there as well.
I think you've touched on something really important there, which is kind of the power of the story and the storytelling, and people can relate to that. So if people can relate to your story and the story of your restaurant and where you've been and where you're going, and it looks like through your social media already you've been able to help people to kind of get to know you. And then people want an experience, right? They want to be part of something that's an experience that feels like it fits their culture and their values and their needs. And if they can relate to that, you're just going to develop really loyal clientele. So it sounds like you're doing.
I mean, I've been putting out recipes and writing. I guess we'll leave the writing out for now, but recipes and videos for a while now with TV or whatever else it is. And you can go online and Google or go on foodnetwork.com or any of the other food platforms and find very similar recipes to what I have, or find similar food to maybe we'll have at the restaurant. But so you have to have another kind of compelling argument behind why somebody should be a part of what you're doing. And I think, like you just mentioned, the story is integral in playing that part.
Yeah, see your vision, and then they just totally can relate to that. So that's fantastic that that the fact that you get that, really puts you ahead.
I was going to say that, certainly, Hollywood is a great example of how, there's no new story. It's just the same stories retold again and stuff. And it's really, like you said, Chris, it's different times you may have some different recipes that, everybody else has barbecue recipes and all that kind of stuff. But it's really about not only just the recipe itself, but also your story behind the recipe and the way it's expressed through your restaurant. And so, I think the connection there is to having the social media and the content of different kinds on your website and stuff like that, telling that story in a way that is, uniquely Chris Hill. And I think that's the key is, not simply like where, you're just having just another recipe and stuff or another, item on, social media and stuff, everything, but what it is that is Chris Hill's, signature in terms of, the way you tell the story and stuff. And I think, like as Sarah talked about, it's things like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. They're great opportunities to kind of do it in kind of little bite-sized nuggets and being able to kind of share that is a different, and especially ways that become shareable. That's the key for success, I think.
Yeah.
So Sarah, would you say there's some other kind of ways to kind of tell that story for Chris that what kind of things? I've seen how sometimes you've talked about some of the different clients you've worked with and some of the case studies that have been particularly effective. Maybe we can drill down a little bit to some of these different examples.
Yeah, and just one quick question though, Chris. How far away do you think you are time-wise from when the restaurant would open, just so I can get a sense of the launch schedule?
About 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, so it's really close. So what do you have now in terms of social presence or website for the restaurant? Do you have like a pre-launch? Are you already starting your pre-launch campaign, or are you kind of waiting a little further? I know you said you have some, obviously.
Yeah, we've gotten our Instagram handle, which is Smoke and Still, all written out in the Word. We have our Twitter handle. Obviously, we can't do a Facebook page, and then we've started the website and everything, which will, I would assume, probably launch in the next couple weeks.
Okay. And are you trying to? Do you have a strategy to capture email, contacts on your website?
Yeah, we'll definitely have because I do a newsletter myself that goes out once a week. But yeah, we'll definitely have a subscribe. Also, the pre-existing restaurant, it has a couple thousand emails, subscribers on their list. I don't want to take over that newsletter list, because then I feel like it's like a spam type thing. But they're gonna send out right before it switches over to us, hey, there's a new kid in town, here's a free appetizer on them.
Okay. Yeah, I was mentioning that just for a couple of reasons. I mean, just from, obviously social media platforms, as you know, they change all the time, and, they become more and less popular, and you always want to try to have a strategy to kind of drive people back and be able to capture their contacts. And even email, it's right now it's the best sort of way to stay in touch regularly with people, but even that could change in the future. But having that multi-pronged communication strategy, because people are all over the place. Sometimes they're on their email, sometimes they're on Facebook, sometimes on Instagram. So the more you can touch them across those platforms is great. Mm-hmm. I definitely think Instagram is really hot right now for restaurants, for sure. I would try to work on a strategy of kind of interacting with other. Obviously you have a very specific demographic, right? Of only people within a certain number of miles from your restaurant are going to be your target customer. So what I generally recommend on Instagram is kind of an engagement strategy. If you or someone on your team can work on looking at other businesses that maybe might be complementary businesses, so maybe bars in the area, or other restaurants of different food types that would have the same kind of clientele, interacting with their followers, and even interacting with their accounts. You want to, even before you launch the restaurant, as much as possible, try to build up some anticipation and buzz. And I don't know if you have an opening event. You probably have something for a grand opening or pre-opening. And the influencer campaign will be key too, just looking at, definitely in the area, who are the kind of key bloggers and influencers. Your PR company, it's interesting because PR is really blending, right? Like the social media and public relations and marketing is all kind of overlapping now. But a good PR campaign should definitely include reaching out to bloggers, influencers, new media, as well as press, and even people that have big social media following. So if you can have your PR firm at least identify, the top 20 or so influencers that you can help start engaging with for that. So yeah, the fact that you're doing newsletter is fantastic. Make sure that you give people a real incentive on your website and even on social media to sign up for your newsletter. Like, try to get people, very specifically to go from Instagram to get to your website and sign up, or give them a really easy way to go opt in for your newsletter, and offer them something, for it. And doesn't always have to be a discount. I'm not a big fan of always, 25% off, but it could be something extra, a free drink or a dessert or something, offer something extra that they can get. Because a lot of time, getting people to opt in just for newsletters these days, people just don't give up their emails that easily.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
They already be doing that. I really like Instagram right now for that. I think Periscope, if you haven't thought about that yet, can be really.
We've thought about doing some kind of live look-ins. Yeah. We have a private dining room, so doing some recipe type stuff there. Also, maybe kind of quick 2 or 3 minute segments of my brother throwing together a cocktail. Hey, this will be featured on the list tonight. Things like that, or even kind of live look-ins at the kitchen as we're slaving away back there.
Those are
great.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Periscope, I know it's still a little bit early in the adoption, but it's taking off really quickly. And I have a kind of some of my career I spent in event marketing, and I think it's just going to change the game in terms of live events and the like live interaction and the experience of like people that aren't there, like making people feel like, wow, something's really exciting going on there, and being able to share that live experience and the buzz of your restaurant and what's going on behind the scenes. It's just so powerful. I don't know if you've tried it. You can save the videos after you do them and repurpose them. They're not quite as nice as actually filming something, but I think leading up to the buzz and the opening, it could be a really interesting way. There's definitely the kind of the thought leaders and the influencers and the first mover people are already getting on that. So if you want to kind of be on the cutting edge, but also I just think it's an amazing way to give you a really even more personal connection, because obviously everything you're doing on social media and responding to them is great, but this is like real time. They're putting comments and they're hearts and like what you're doing. So I would definitely think about that. I mean, Twitter is tough.
I've done some stuff on Meerkat. I haven't done Periscope. What would you?
I
think I'm neck and neck right now, and who knows who's gonna win. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm seeing Periscope taking off just because of Twitter winning them. So that basically anytime you go live, it tweets out and people share it through Twitter. And I see that one right now as kind of as taking the lead. So
I think personally that in the end you have to just see which one takes the lead and stuff, and it's going to be, I think, neck and neck for a little while, and you just have to kind of watch as things evolve. I don't think it's going to be really clear until maybe another half year at least, or a year and stuff.
Brother, maybe, yeah.
I would say though, just something that Sarah mentioned and stuff about the influencers is right now, as much as possible, just to start kind of building relationships with these folks, engaging with them. And one of the things I personally would recommend is meetups, there's these groups of these foodies, and they're big, and these are definitely some folks that if you just start building a relationship with them, when it comes time, then it's not a cold email then of inviting them to an event. It's hey, we've got this pre-launch event coming up, bring your friends, and and then you have this ready audience then. And it just really will just kind of help you get that momentum of just, for the launch itself and stuff.
I absolutely agree, John. Some of us have gotten that spam email where we haven't heard from somebody in 2 years, and then hey buddy, I hope you're doing well, blah blah blah, and then at the bottom it's I'd love for you to come to this thing, and it's okay, well now I see why they're emailing me.
Right.
But
right.
I was talking with my mom, my dad 2 nights ago, and talking about just this whole process. You've been great, and my mom was asking me, she's on Facebook and she's actually on Twitter. I think I'm her only follower, but she was asking what's the ROI essentially of all this stuff that your time you spend on Facebook or Twitter, or you're doing these types of things, and it's kind of, in a sense, a little bit of a question mark, but now that there's, especially being in Atlanta and having so much of a network here in Atlanta, having so much opportunity to leverage that, I think it's kind of comes into play. So it's hard to kind of quantify, but I think at the end of the day, I've done a lot to, like you said, reach out to people not only in the area, but I'm a good friend with Chef Art Smith, who's Oprah's chef for 10 years, and he has a restaurant here in Atlanta. So definitely connecting with those people and keeping in touch. And I'll text Lockhill every single day to let them know how the progress is and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely staying in the conversation with the people around and who can have a positive impact on the PR and just people that you want in your corner in general.
Somebody on Core was just asking me about what's the number one skill of an entrepreneur in the startup, and what I told them was curiosity. And the reason why, to me, is because you can do all kinds of things, all kinds of skills, financial and logistics, all kinds of stuff. But in the end, to me, as the leader of your startup and stuff, to be curious is the number one thing. Not only curious about your product and how people respond to it and stuff, but also curious about your customers. And that curiosity, I think, is, like, somebody else was also saying about the idea of that what you have to do is really work on the things that are unscalable, like as a leader, as a entrepreneur and stuff, because there's all these other things you can delegate and stuff, and those are scalable. But as an entrepreneur, the key things that requires you to do that nothing else will, nobody else can replace and stuff, or these things that you can't scale, like the relationships that you're talking about, and kind of connecting, and the things that, like, building these bonds with your fans and stuff. That's the key difference and stuff, and it kind of takes shape in the form of curiosity in my book, and that's what I would say.
I agree. I agree with both, especially the curiosity part, because once you kind of get the formula down, you can scale the formula. So being curious not only about, like, what you're doing and your customers and how to bring it to market, but also, okay, if I have this one idea that I am successful on, what else? I mean, I think an entrepreneur, their mind's kind of always churning. How else can I use this model, this formula, and scale that at the market?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of great industry relationships and a reputation that you can leverage, so that's fantastic. And it's all, as long as you're genuine and real, even if you haven't reached out to someone in a while, as long as you're authentic and, not just asking for something, but just informing them. So, it sounds like you've already got that networking part covered. But it
and I was thinking, like, and I've tried to create the personality and kind of be as open and transparent as possible with who I am, so that when I do make that phone call or email or text, they say, okay, well, I see who Chris is based on his writing, based on his TED Talk, based on his hustle, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Maybe I will do a favor for him.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, do you have a pretty strong relationship in the community there in Atlanta, or is that a new? Because I know you're from Virginia, right?
Yeah. No, I'm from Atlanta, so yeah, my roots are here, and I first started connecting with people before I opened the restaurant in Atlanta or in Virginia. Before I did that 5 years ago, definitely had the roots here, but also knew I always wanted to be back here. So,
right.
And good friends with some of the food writers, a lot of the PR people, obviously a lot of the chefs, who we all talk about, but a competition a lot of times can support each other too, especially in things like restaurants. So we all kind of work together, and we all like having good restaurants that make our city look good. So
yeah. Well, you touched on something a little bit ago that I wanted to come back to, back when you were talking about your mother and she's asking you about your ROI on social media, because it is a good point. It can take up an awful lot of time, and if you don't track what you're doing with social media and then go back and periodically look and see what has worked well, you can end up, you and your team, right, spending quite a bit of time on things that aren't getting you a lot of results. Like, one thing right now that's not working very well is Facebook fan pages. You've obviously tuned into the fact that you need to advertise on Facebook. The fan pages are not getting very much reach anymore. So that's why it's just really important, if you have if you're working on trying to build up that newsletter list so that you have more people in your database and your contact lists, just make sure whenever you get your web guy setting things up that he makes sure to set up in Google Analytics that you have newsletter subscribers as a goal in there, and so later you'll be able to look back after 3 months and say, okay, how much traffic came from Twitter and Facebook and whatever, and then who's converting better. And with Instagram, you have to set up a tracking link for it because it won't show up in your analytics. But if you get that stuff set up in the beginning, it'll you don't have to go spend all your time doing analysis of it, but at least every quarter or so, you want to be looking at what's working and what's not working, because you and your team have your time is very valuable, and there's places you can focus more. I mean, Facebook fan pages are funny. You want to look like the lights are on, right? You have to, if you don't have it, if you don't have some posts there, people are going to go there and they're going to think you're not, in business. There's nothing going on. You have to kind of keep up a presence. But it may not be where you strategically spend your time investment.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think first of all, I think the reason why Facebook fan pages have gotten kind of a bad rap and why Facebook obviously went, I think that was the long game. They knew where they were going to go with it, but so much of it was, especially restaurants and brick and mortar businesses, just spamming out specials, spamming out things that okay,
Right.
we get it. Like, here are your specials. This is what you're
Right.
offering tonight. We know where we can watch a football game this weekend. But
Yeah.
I've had a lot of organic growth and also organic reach just by sharing really good content.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the last couple of
Absolutely.
weeks, I've had two or three that have gotten over 100 shares, and I only have 7,000 fans. But
Oh, that's
two or
great.
three different posts that have had 100 or
Nice.
more shares. One of which was for an article that I wrote, but another one which was curated content. It was from fine dining lovers, or maybe his gourmet magazine. One of those that I knew that my followers would appreciate. So I think restaurants can do a lot more of that. Like, okay, we're a barbecue restaurant. Here's a barbecue themed fan page. Maybe they'd like to know more about cooking barbecue because they already like us anyway. I'll share that, and then it kind of gets the real wheel spinning. And then once you get some momentum, I think it helps keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple. You've really hit the nail on the head because Facebook is going to. The reason that they crack down on that is for user experience, right? They don't. People were complaining, and if people don't like their experience on Facebook, they're going to leave Facebook. So they care about their customers, and that's going to be better for the advertisers, in the long run. So the more and all social media is really built on the more engagement you can get, the more shares, the more traction, the more they're going to show your content. So the more you're showing valuable, interesting, relevant content for people, and the more it gets shared and liked and commented on, they're going to show it more and more. So it's just kind of a spiral. And then another thing is when you advertise, if you advertise to your fans, it'll be also less expensive. It's kind of like doing the retargeting because they
Right.
already know you. So if you've already captured someone and they're already a fan of your page and you do some advertisements just to your fan base,
Right.
that'll be less expensive as well. So that's fantastic that you're doing that. Another thing that's working, that's been really effective in different markets and different industries and niches is looking at Facebook groups because they tend to get a lot more engagement than the fan pages right now. And so not necessarily that I would advise you running out and starting your own group, but you may want to look around and do a little research on Facebook about what sort of foodie groups are out there,
Yes.
what kind of groups already exist that might have some of your target audience in there. And again, that I can totally trust that you would do it the right way, but go in, start to join the conversation, and then when you have something to mention that's related to your new,
Right.
then you just add it in a valuable way. You share some valuable stuff. So that could be
Yeah.
a way to go if you haven't tried that.
I was going to say that that's the key, like which, Chris clearly has a grasp on is just, kind of leveraging these audiences. These audiences already, raise their hands that they're interested in, say, bourbon or barbecue and stuff. And all you're doing is just, joining in and just, contributing the value of, where you can fit in with your voice and your story and stuff like that. And I think that's the key is just, kind of not trying to spam, but just simply seeing how, your voice would contribute to the conversation. I mean, that's the key item.
Yeah, I mean, like asking, will my audience find this valuable or useful or interesting? And if they will, then you're not spamming them at all. You're doing them a favor. I would consider it. So
Yeah.
Definitely.
Probably are pretty familiar with the hashtags on Instagram, but you can find some. I always advise trying to get some really specific ones that are very related to your posts and your content for sure, but very specific to that audience. And the more narrow you can get, the more of a targeted audience you're going to get on Instagram.
yeah,
And so
like I found
barbecue and
a
bourbon.
local farmer doing the same thing.
Sorry, you cut out right there, so I couldn't hear you.
I was saying, yeah, like I was doing the exact same thing with the hashtags of. I found a local farmer who's 60 miles away, and we started communicating through
Nice.
Instagram posts. And he's like, "Hey, next time I'm in Atlanta, I'll bring some stuff by. hey, I'll buy you some barbecue, that kind of stuff.
It's
Awesome.
really cool. I actually just did a case study on my blog on Instagram. A woman, and it's a different industry. She does vintage jewelry and antique jewelry, but she actually not just found customers, but she found new suppliers that she never would have met before, and she ended up with a local jewelry or a local clothing shop, a vintage clothing shop, started carrying her jewelry.
Oh, very cool.
In their shop, and I mean, you can make some really, if you think about it in terms of building relationships, you can make some really incredible connections.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Well, I think that's a key point, though, is that, like different times, even though Instagram is a visual medium, that to pay attention to, these hashtags. In other words, sometimes we have to pay attention to some of these more subtle kind of aspects of something, we wouldn't, otherwise think of.
Some of them kind of crop up and go away, so you have to just keep checking noticing what other people in the sort of, industry or niche or vertical that you're in are using.
Yeah, and like the more you focus those hashtags and really in general on your niche, the more targeted, the more they're going to be a potential customer of yours too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to get quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one more thing about, and I don't know if you've seen this, Sarah, but I know, as we talked about, Facebook can be pretty guarded about how they allow things to show up on newsfeed and everything. And one of the things I've heard about is that if you post video directly to Facebook, it makes a difference versus posting onto YouTube and then posting the YouTube link onto Facebook. Have you seen or heard about the different kind of ways that affects how you show up on newsfeed? I don't know how much of that came through.
I don't know if you can hear John.
Yeah, I kind of. Yeah, I heard a little bit of a garble. I was going to say, though, that different times I've heard that it makes a big difference between posting directly to Facebook versus uploading to YouTube and then posting the YouTube link to Facebook. From what I understand, it does make a difference for how something shows up on newsfeed because of the Facebook rules and stuff.
Yeah, with video, I would definitely upload directly to your Facebook fan page, for sure. And the other thing that's working well right now is if you have your Instagram account, you can choose in the settings whether you want to link it to your Facebook personal page or to one of a fan page.
Right.
And I've found that I get more views on my posts that I share from Instagram through to Facebook. I don't recommend sharing every single one because you want to keep some kind of exclusive content for Instagram, especially in your in the restaurant and your niche. I think it's it's good to have people getting something exclusive there. But I find that when I share right through to my fan page, I'll get probably triple the amount of views than I would on a similar post. And I think that's because Facebook is trying to promote Instagram because they're trying to get more people onto that platform. So they're showing the content more.
Kind of like taking over the whole video world with
promoting. Yeah, and video, they don't want to send people off to YouTube, right? They want to keep people on Facebook. They want it to be, they're trying to promote their own real estate. So, yeah, there's always little quirky things.
Alrighty, well, I know it's late there, guys. Thanks so much for both coming in at a really late hour. I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Thing, John, if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
I know I'm the one that said I wanted to go to bed, but only other thing I wanted to ask, Chris, is if you've used things like Eventbrite and Facebook events and stuff like that to promote.
Great. Great point.
Launch events.
I've used Eventbrite before for doing some charity functions that I've done before, but I kind of gave up on Facebook events a couple years ago when it seemed like you get event invites from you get like 5 or 10 a day, and I think a lot of people tune them out, but maybe I need to give them a chance again. I don't know, you tell me.
I would try it especially if you have for your launch event or anything bigger, because it's really easy for people to invite others, to the event and get notified. And Eventbrite is interesting too. I was actually a few months ago heard a speaker from Eventbrite. One of their most popular events are those like pop-up chefs, like they're just having the meals at their house, at their home, whatever. But I think people are looking on Eventbrite for dining experiences. So it could be something to try. Just if you're having any special events, to just add an Eventbrite listing to it, just to see if it gives you some extra exposure. Cause
you can do free events on Eventbrite?
Yeah, you can. You can.
Okay.
Yeah, for your paid. And then, of course, any other, make sure that when you're doing something big like your launch event or any big public events, that you're looking at all those local listings and press. I'm sure your PR firm will be able to help you out with that.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, and definitely we're looking forward to launching your restaurant and hearing about all the good stuff. And thanks, Sarah, for staying with us so late. And yeah, definitely we'll look forward to having possibly another event down the road with both of you and stuff like that. And we'll at this time tune out for this evening. And thanks for everybody who's been watching. And we'll look forward to next time.
Thanks, John. See you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.